Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the second Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. We are back by popular demand. We had such great feedback on the first one last month that we decided, why not do it every month? So here we are. It's a pleasure to have you here. I mean, you could be anywhere else in the world right now, on a Saturday especially, but you chose to be here with us, so I do not take that lightly. We're going to get right into it. You know how we do here. We're not going to waste a whole bunch of time. I want you to hear from this amazing group of panelists that we have. And first, we're going to pass the rock to Classye James. She's backstage in the green room right now. So I'll give her a brief introduction. For those of you who, for some reason, maybe you've been living under a rock, you don't know who Classye James is. But Classye James is the founder and CEO of Shakeout LLC, a consulting business assisting athletes during their transition out of competitive athletics. Additionally, she's an operations manager at Cisco Systems, which is part of the Cisco WebEx organization, whose responsibility is to help support, transform, and scale a cloud collaboration business worth over $1 billion. That's billion with the B, folks, in case you missed it. She's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for projects in which she's led, and was the first Cisco employee to lead a project in which an NBA player was featured in a WebEx marketing campaign. Major history right there, folks. Growing up in the heart of Silicon Valley. Speaking of Silicon Valley, hold up. I got to give Classye a proper introduction to play this. Growing up in the heart of Silicon Valley provided her a unique lens into the technology and entrepreneurial industries at a young age. We've recently gotten an opportunity to see a different side of Classye. She's getting prepared to launch her second business, Sip and Slay, an organic loose leaf tea company, which has allowed her to showcase her passion for health and wellness. Please welcome to the show, Classye James. Hold up.
It's a vibe. It's nothing but a good vibe, you know?
That's it. I had to do it. You know, I had to bring you on.
I appreciate it.
Right, Bay Area, please stand up. Northern California, please stand up.
Absolutely.
So Classye, all right, so before we get into it, this whole event is centered around the celebration of what you've been doing after your athletic career. But I think just to give listeners a little bit of context, make no mistake, you were a baller, you were doing numbers at San Jose State, and now you're doing numbers in everyday life, in the business, in the technology world. But let's just start, let's give listeners a little bit of an introduction to who is Classye James, and we can start it out with your career at San Jose State.
I guess, honestly, the career starts at Oregon State, because I played at Oregon State my freshman year. And then I transferred over to San Jose State, had actually like a hip fracture when I transferred. So I was on crutches for 6 months, had to relearn how to walk again, was able to go back on the court and perform at San Jose State. And then my career came to an end because of another injury, which was a bone and cartilage transplant in my left knee. And that essentially took me out the game. I still technically have one more year of eligibility, but I don't think anyone wants me at this point because it's old and busted. But, you know, I'm just going to put it out there. I still have a year of eligibility left.
Right, somebody might pick you up. You never know. You know?
Listen, I'm telling you. But, you know, from then playing basketball, I was really fortunate enough, honestly, to get my first job out of competitive athletics, working at Cisco Systems. And that had a lot to do with my mom, who worked at Cisco at the time, and honestly just growing up in Silicon Valley, being around technology companies. Ironically speaking, my mom had been at Cisco for over 20 years, so I grew up at Cisco. I used to make her PowerPoint presentations when I was in middle school. My dad's the computer specialist or technician at the VA hospital, both in Palo Alto and Menlo Park. So I was around computers. I was around technology growing up. So it only made sense that as I became an adult, I would somehow get into technology. Ironically, I was working at the same company for my mom for 5 years. She's now transitioned out of Cisco. But yeah, and I think that while I was at Cisco, although I was blessed, still am blessed and fortunate to have an amazing job, I didn't feel fulfilled. And so I decided to go back to school and get my MBA at Santa Clara University. And while I was in the MBA program, that's essentially when I created Shakeout, because I had so many athletes asking me, how did you get a job in tech after you finished playing basketball? Like, you had no work experience. Like, what is the secret? And so I was reviewing resumes. I was talking to a lot of athletes, and that essentially became a job in a job. And that's when I identified the gap and decided to use my MBA program to help me cultivate what now is Shakeout. And then, like you said, recently in the midst of the pandemic, I'm an avid tea drinker, but it's really important to take care of yourself, both internally and externally. And so that's kind of was the genesis of Sip and Slay, like my loose leaf tea business. to really help me make sure I'm, absorbing all the herbs on natural and organic level. And then they taste fire, and it's cold, it's COVID. So that's kind of how Sip and Slay started. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
That's amazing, Classye. We're definitely going to dive in more into Sip and Slay and more into Shakeout. But first, can you just go back a little bit? And by the way, I'm gonna give me some Sip and Slay tea. I know the target audience is ladies, but I like to wake up and slay today too. You know what I'm saying? So
listen, I'm for it. I've already got some sales. My brother and my dad were like, "Oh, I want some tea." I have a couple of my guy friends that were like, "No, I want some tea." So you need some male mugs on your website, Classye. Don't be sexist.
That's right. Matter of fact, yeah, let me get some afterwards. I didn't even talk it out yet. I'm slipping. I gotta go get me some tea. Can you just take listeners back? Because obviously you were in a great position and you put yourself in that position after college. And obviously a lot of athletes don't. Did you deal with anything, I guess, from like an emotional perspective, even though you were set up career-wise during the transition at all?
Yeah, and I still do to this day. I'm an advocate for, mental health and wellness. I suffered depression. I lost a sense of who I was. I lost a sense of a community. And I really had to pick myself up from the ground. And that's honestly also the reason why I created Shakeout, because I realized I'm so used to being on a team. And then when I was no longer playing for a team, I didn't have like my girls that I was around all the time. And so Shakeout essentially kind of was a way for me to create a community. And I've been able to meet people like you through the community, helping athletes life after sports. And we realized that we're all in this together. But at the time when I transitioned, I felt so alone. I was like, no one understands what I'm going through. With the bone and cartilage transplant, I had to relearn how to walk and run. Well, I can't really run that well anymore, but I had to learn how to walk again. They told me I would never be able to play basketball again. And so aside from the physical trauma, I was going through mental trauma, and I was so alone. And although my parents loved me to death, they had no idea what I was going through. They're like, well, it was about that time for you to stop playing anyway. So, it's fine. And I was like, y'all don't get it. Y'all threw me in basketball when I was like 4 years old. And at the time I was like 21, 22, my whole identity was being a basketball player. So I don't know how I add value to the world anymore.
Wow. I love that you share that, because I think that's often one of the, and you know this through the athletes that we both work with, that's often one of the hardest parts of the transition is you're at a place where no one around you understands it. You're separated from all your teammates who are going through their own individual struggles, but everybody's, boxed off in their own little situation and being a lone wolf, and nobody really knows that all their other teammates are going through it too. And then the part that you said about community, and I love that you've created that community through Shakeout, because that's another key part of it too. We go from being part of this tight-knit group and having all our teammates around us. I always say it's like a fraternity or a sorority,
Yeah, it is.
And then you branch off, you're just like, man, I'm solo dolo now. This is tough,
Yes.
And there's a lot of people, obviously we're here to talk about entrepreneurship. And there are a lot of people, a lot of former athletes who I just don't think athletes, not everyone is cut out to just go the corporate route and climb the corporate ladder. And the fact that you were able to carve out your own lane for yourself, can you just give some advice to not just former athletes, but anyone listening? Like, how do you identify an opportunity and find those gaps? What was like the secret sauce for you behind identifying even the idea to start a company like Shakeout?
I think it was identifying the gap in the industry and being extremely passionate about it, right? Like the athlete community, I'm still a part of to today. So I'm so passionate about athletes. After what I experienced through my transition, through my injuries, I was like, I definitely want to be an advocate. I want to be an ally. I want to pay it forward. And then after, I looked at the passion behind it, I was like, there's actually an industry gap here. So instead of complaining about something, why don't you solve a problem? And that's also the case, not just in entrepreneurship, but in anything in life. And that's how I've been able to even climb the corporate ladder while running now about to be 2 businesses. I identify gaps at Cisco and I fulfill those gaps. I don't sit up here and complain to my bosses like this isn't working. No, I go to them like, obviously we know that there's an issue. Here's a proposed solution. It might not be the actual solution that we run with, but at least I'm trying to solve a problem than adding to it by complaining about it. And so that's kind of what I saw with that athlete transition. Nowadays, I see a lot more schools making it a priority for player development. I see a lot more like consulting companies, a lot more transition coaches, which is a blessing, but still athletes don't have access to them as readily as I feel like they should be available. And so instead of complaining about the lack of resources, why don't we provide the resources for the athletes? And so for anything in entrepreneurship, come with the solution, don't talk about a problem.
That's right. See, this is why me and you hit it off right away, because you're about solutions. This is one of our first conversations.
Yes.
So I want really any current and former athletes listening to this right now to understand what Classye is saying. This doesn't mean, just stuff your emotions down and, don't, just sulk in a corner somewhere. It means that you have to eventually take responsibility for your own life. That's really what Classye's getting at. We've always been solution-based people. So the same thing applies in life after the game and whatever you do. And okay, so this is another thing, right? You had the idea, you saw the gap. A lot of people have great ideas, Classye. We know that. A lot of people, they got a head full of ideas. Right. Let's talk about what it took as an entrepreneur to not only identify the gap, but come up with the solution, and then most importantly, execute on it. Can we talk about that?
I think it takes resilience and perseverance. And we already have those key fundamentals instilled in us as athletes. So I think that sets us ahead, because what Shakeout was when I first created it is not what it is today. I'm constantly pivoting, and I'm not afraid. I don't call failures like in business personally, because I don't fail. I pivot, I adapt to the market as it's evolving and changing. So you can look at it like, okay, what I first was trying to do was it didn't work out. Okay, because it wasn't the right time or the right place. Pivot, adapt, right? Because everything in the world is constantly evolving. So that's the one thing that I would say, because literally, if you have been on this journey with me when I first started Shakeout, like it at first was just helping out female athletes. Like my whole website was nothing but pink vibes because I love pink. And then it became like, I don't want Shakeout to be Shakeout Classye James. I want Shakeout to actually, and not just for female athletes, I want it to be for all genders, all sports. And so I had to remove my face from it, the pinkness from it. I made it gender neutral. I made it more about Shakeout as a company versus Shakeout plus Classye helping female athletes. And then even from the offers that I was offering before to what I'm doing now, to what I'm going to do with the Life After Sports conference that's got unfortunately pushed out to 2022. Like, I'm constantly evolving and adapting and changing, and I'm not afraid of that change. I think also something that we have to be real with is most businesses initially do not make money. And so if you're in something for the money, like your thought process, your business plan has to be a lot different. Whereas like I really necessarily wasn't in it for the money. And so I was able to pivot and make changes and not be too stressed about my bottom line because I still was working a full-time job. So a lot of people have that thought process, like either it's corporate America or entrepreneurship. I say you can do both if you want to do both and if it makes sense for your life. It makes sense for my life, and it allows me to be really flexible with my businesses, knowing that like I don't have to pay my bills with my business yet.
Right. I think that's smart. I think the fact that you were really strategic about it is what's key. Because there are a lot of people who kind of go, and granted, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't take the leap, meaning just like quit my job. I don't recommend that to anybody though, because I had to earn my stripes and take my bumps and bruises. But it's exactly like you said, and I know that a lot of former athletes that we work with and help with the transition, that's a strategy that you and I have talked about. Where, hey, do what you need to do to pay your bills. Like, make sure you're good. Obviously, don't do something that's draining your life energy so you can't build on the side. But the key is to have something where you can tuck something away and then be strategic about building before work, after work, on the weekends, and making that sacrifice. I want to dive into the Life After Sports conference. Can we talk? I know you didn't make the official announcement yet, but can we dive in?
Yes, we can. So I have not yet. I'm making the announcement with my co-founder, Crystal Beecham, like January. So, but you guys will hear it here first. So ask away.
Exclusive. Let's go.
Yeah, you got that exclusive.
Yes, I know it was supposed to happen this or next year, next summer, which obviously everybody was super excited about. But why don't you just tell everybody what the Life After Sports Conference is and what it will be?
Yeah, so essentially we're bringing together all of the dope people that you see on social media that are kind of like the advocates for life after sports. And we're bringing them as speakers in Atlanta, Georgia, in June of 2022 to help out in their various lanes of expertise, right? So we have athletes that are speaking that, you know, focus on mental health, that are sports psychologists. We have athletes that are entrepreneurs. We have athletes that are marketing gurus, athletes that create apps, athletes that are in tech, you know, athletes that are just doing dope, amazing stuff. And then obviously in attendance, we're looking to attract current and former athletes that maybe be looking for a new job. We're also going to be having companies that are sponsoring this event that are looking to actively hire athletes. So it's not just, you know, a conference where we're going to listen to a bunch of dope speakers. We're also going to have a career fair where you as an attendee can possibly leave the conference with a potential job or internship. And that's never been done before as far as I know. I didn't want to just create an experience where we hear people talk, because I feel like although that's really important, at the end of the day, athletes are like, okay, that was great, I'm inspired. I still got to pay bills. Or, you know, I want athletes to be able to maybe sign up with a transition coach that can help them start a business. If they're like, okay, I want to start a business, you know, they can reach out to some of the athletes that are speaking on our panel that have started a business, and they can work with them on actually like jumpstarting their first actual business. And it's like that community thing that we talked about earlier. I'm looking to bring together the community of athletes that have gone through the transition, will go through the transition, or are currently going through the transition, to let them know that they're not alone. And I think most importantly, that's what's super dope. I'm bummed that we had to push it out to 2022, but it gives us time to really make this experience super amazing. And, you know, we really can't control disrespectful COVID. It's gonna do its like, there's nothing that we can do about that. But for me, I did not want to transition it over to making it a virtual experience, because there's nothing like that in-person experience, and it cannot be duplicated virtually. And so I am not going to have the first conference until I can see and hug people in person.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I know a lot of people are looking forward to being there because, like you said, we've all been supporting each other. All these athletes who help and serve current former athletes, we've been supporting each other and showing each other love from a distance. But to be able to get there in person and, like you said, not just speak, but have an impact, do some coaching, have breakout sessions. The fact that an athlete can leave your conference with a job offer, that's major. And it comes back once again to solutions. You just being solution oriented. Like let's knock all these birds out with one stone and just have everybody at one place doing it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think that's super. Let me just acknowledge you for a second too, because from the inception of the idea to where you started executing, like you said before COVID got disrespectful, you know, and I know it's not just about a conference. There's a lot of people's lives who've seriously been impacted by that, of course. So I'm not trying to make light of the situation. At the same time, before COVID hit, you already had the venue, you already had the speakers lined up, you had sponsors secured. Like that thing was ready to go. Like you could have done it 3 months from when you talked about it realistically if you wanted to.
Listen, I was getting things done like expeditiously fast. Like
expeditiously, like T.I. said.
Expeditiously. Because I just was like, you know, if anyone who's watching is familiar with the conference Afrotech, I had went to Afrotech for the first time last year, and it was bringing together, you know, folks of color who are in technology. And I was like, this is really dope, but I need to create this experience for athletes, because we are just an interesting class of individuals that I feel like we're constantly overlooked. You know, while we're competing, it's like, oh, you guys are just spoiled because, you know, you're an athlete. No, we work super hard, right? And then we work our butt off our entire career, and then we graduate, and then we're thrown into the real world. And honestly, we're not prepared and equipped. So again, I was like, okay, what can I do where I can impact more athletes than just having like a workshop? Going to a university and having a workshop is fine, but this conference is an experience for people all across the actual world. I've had people reach out to me globally that are like, yeah, I really want to come to your conference. And I'm like, that is lit. Like, I didn't even expect to impact people globally, but to bring everybody together once a year, and you make friends, you build a community, you know, you have access to resources that you did not know were available to athletes, and you can possibly leave with a job, like, that's just golden, I feel like.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. You know, I believe, 100%. And I'm curious to know, because like you said, you attended Afrotech. I know you were before COVID, you were attending a bunch of different conferences. Can you talk about that? Because did you go into it with the mindset that I'm attending these to learn and take notes and figure out how I can do my own thing, how I want to put together my own conference? Or was it more like you were attending the events and that's where the idea was birthed?
Yeah, I think the first one was I attended Grace Hopper, which is the biggest conference, I think it might be in the US or in the world for women in technology. So I was the MC at the Cisco booth, you know, hyping everybody up. And then I was like, this is lit. Like it was huge, like huge, huge, huge in Orlando, Florida at like a convention center. And I think that's when I first was like, this was really cool, but this is just for women. And then I was like, okay, I kind of started thinking about the Life After Sports conference. And when I went to Afrotech, I'm like, okay, now I need an experience like this for athletes. Because I've been to too many conferences, one for, you know, females and one for people of color, where I was like, okay, like I need an experience like this for my athletes out there, because our resumes don't look as lovely as those who have had internships while they're in college. So I also want hiring managers and recruiters there that know that. You know, when say if an athlete went to a Grace Hopper or an Afrotech and gave somebody their resume, like they would look at their resume like you have nothing on it. But at the Life After Sports conference, these hiring managers and recruiters know what they're getting into. They know that the resume may not be as complete as another candidate, but they're not hiring an athlete for the resume. A resume is a formality. They're going to hire an athlete because they know athletes have a certain specialty that no one else does. And we could be biased because we're athletes, but I'm just saying there's a secret to athletes being in the workforce or entrepreneurs where we bring something to the table that nobody else can.
Bars.
You either get it or you don't.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's real classy. We're gonna dive into Sip and Slay in a second, but I just want to ask, you know, with Shakeout, with everything else you got going on, what is the future of Shakeout? I mean, we got the conference in 2022, and I know that's going to be the first of many conferences, obviously.
Yeah.
But just talk to the audience a little bit about what they can expect going forward with Classye James and Shakeout.
Yeah. So with Shakeout, I've pivoted my focus to honestly like invest in making a dope experience once a year for my attendees, and that might turn into like multiple conference, you know, type of thing a year where I might break it down and by region. And then also you guys are hearing it first, but the year of the conference, I'm actually releasing the Shakeout app. I've already had it built in the midst of COVID, but I do not want to release it until the conference. And so we're going to have an app for Shakeout. And then essentially that's pretty much my focus. I have the merchandise line still on the website, but I really put my focus into making these community experiences for athletes, connecting current and former athletes with, you know, people that value them. And that was, I think I always wanted to make an impact, and I finally figured out the way to make a huge impact. I love putting on big events, so it just kind of fits perfectly with things that I'm passionate about, and then also kind of the fundamental mission of Shakeout.
Man, we're just getting exclusive after exclusive today. We got the Shakeout app coming. Come on. Can we talk about that a little bit? Do you just like a high level view of what people can expect once the app drops?
Yeah, so essentially the app is what you expect or what you will get out of the conference, but in an app form. So all of the connection to resources, to people, to just like anything that you need that you experience at the conference, I'm bringing it into a digital form as well, because I also realize when you're at an event, you're super inspired, and then you go home and then you're like, business is back to normal. But if you're able to still have those connections, that community, to those resources within an application, you can kind of like, it just reminds you, okay, I can continue to connect with people who are locally close to me. Like, for example, when I moved from California to Atlanta, like I don't have many friends here. I have a lot of family. It would be really nice to go on the app and be like, are there any other former athletes in the A? I'm sure there are, but I don't know where they're at. And so you have an opportunity to use the application to connect with people that are in your region locally. So you can have your own meet and greets and stuff. So you really have an opportunity to build that community that I think most athletes really, really yearn for when they stop playing their sport.
I love that. I think that's major, Classy. And I know anybody listening right now is super inspired by your story, the fact that you've been able to do all this. So before we get into Sip and Slay, I just want to give some context, just in case you missed anything that Classy's been talking about, okay? This woman already has a full-time job with Cisco Systems, right? And is launching legendary historical campaigns at the company, you know? not just working your typical 9 to 5, but making history at the company. All right. She already has a business that's booming. Great idea, Classye. Looking forward to learning more about this. Emmanuel's in the building. Oh my goodness. We gotta give some love to Emmanuel Mio from sociallame.co, showing love. I can't believe I haven't thought to connect you two before. I'm slipping right now. You know, I'm doing my best.
So now we're connected. Now
that's right. That's right. That's right. But what I was saying was, you already have a full-time job. You're making history. You already have a business, not just, you know, with services. You got an app coming out. You got the merchandise. You got conferences planned, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna start another business. What's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? I got some time on my hands. I'll just start another business. So yeah. you already touched on it earlier. It's about health and wellness, but let's just take a deep dive into what people can expect from Sip and Slay Tea. And just please go off on that for a second. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so basically, like I said in the beginning, there were just certain things that I was dealing with on a health basis. Not like I didn't get COVID. I'm fortunate enough to not have gotten COVID, but I started to realize certain things about my body, especially as like a woman, and I'm, you know, approaching 30. I was like, I don't really want to rely on like certain things that I was relying on. I'm really big into herbs and natural remedies, as well as, you know, going to the doctor when I need to go to the doctor, but I just really wanted to be healthier. And I'm an avid tea drinker. I probably drink close to 8 cups of tea a day. Like, it's ridiculous. I drink tea and water. That's it. And so I was like, it's really important for me to know what I'm actually putting into my body. And there's nothing wrong with the, you know, pre-made tea bags or whatever, but a lot of it is like the dust of the leaves. So you're really not getting all the nutritional value as you'll get from a loose leaf tea company. And so I was like, okay, like I found a really dope manufacturer actually in Virginia. And so I started working with them, putting together different flavors and stuff. And so my first 5 flavors actually not only taste really good, but actually have like a nutritional benefit to them. And so that was really dope for me, because I wanted people to know, okay, if you're having problems with like an upset stomach or digestion or your skin, you actually can drink the teas. You actually can drink the teas hot, or you can drink them cold and make them super not healthy for yourself. Put a bunch of sugar and lemonade. Do whatever you want to do. But you can be super, because I'm gonna be unhealthy sometimes. Like, I'm gonna put with some of this tea and have a good drink, you know. And so it's so like there's so much versatility to it, and ultimately it was fun, because being secluded in my house, I got bored. Although I'm doing so much, I still got bored. And I actually was working from home before the pandemic happened. So I was already living a pandemic life for, you know, about 6 months before everyone else was on shutdown. And so like it was a problem that I saw within my life. And so that's why I created Sip and Slay as a solution. But it's fun because I get to be more girly with Sip and Slay, where Shakeout is really just like, you know, gender neutral. Sip and Slay is all girly. It's going to be as pink as I want it to be. You know, men can buy it too, but understand the packaging has pink on it. The website is very pink and it's very me. And it's just been fun. And so I feel like not all businesses have to be like, oh, I have to make a lot of money. Like, no, it is fun for me. And I've actually gotten like a whole lot of pre-sales, so I haven't even pre-launched. So for it to be just fun and me having a good time and I'm making money, like that right there is the American dream.
Right. That's beautiful. I love it. It's a passion project. It's not like you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's something you enjoy. It's helping people, helping them be healthier. So you heard it here, folks. Get rid of your dusty leaves, throw them dusty bags out. So get you some Sip and Slay, loose leaf tea. Take care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Be healthy. Before we, obviously, after hearing this, a lot of people are going to want to get in touch with you, of course. So before we talk about all that, I would just love to wrap up, Classye, with some parting words of wisdom or advice for that former athlete or that current athlete out there who is looking into entrepreneurship. They say, I want to be the next Classye James, or, you know, they want to carve out their own lane in the world. Can you give some advice to that person?
Yeah, I would say networking is something that I didn't think was as important as it actually is. And so I really, really like firmly believe that your network is your net worth, because the people that I've connected with, like my job alone, at Cisco, I got through networking, right? the capability of growing Shakeout has only, gotten to where it's at because of networking and building organic, authentic relationships, showing up organically like yourself and not being afraid to ask for help. Like, throw that ego away. Us as athletes, we have that strong ego. Life after sports, you have to drop that ego because you're coming in like a freshman. You didn't have no big ego as a freshman, because if you did, you got humbled real quick. So I would say, just drop that ego, be yourself and connect with people. If you want to create a business, you should be creating businesses, or you should be connecting with people that are entrepreneurs, athlete or not athlete, right? If you want to work in tech, connect with people who are in tech. If you want to work in hospitality, so on and so forth. Like, be really strategic about the connections that you're building, but also be really authentic and true to yourself. So, because people can see through like the fakeness. And so that's kind of just what has enabled me to be successful. I'm Classye James unapologetically. I don't put on a face for anybody. Like, you're going to get the same person no matter if I'm at Cisco or if you see me at Sprouts. I'm the same person.
That's right. That's strong advice right there, Classye. Thank you for sharing that. And please, speaking of making connections, authentic, genuine connections and strategic connections, how can people get in touch with you and learn about all the great things you got going on?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Classye J. So it's just my first name and then like J. You can find me on LinkedIn at just Classye James. I think I'm the only Classye James in the world. So if you just put in Google Classye James, I'm sure like Shakeout LLC, the website will pop up. ClassyJames.com will pop up. Sip and Play will pop up. But the best way to get a hold of me directly is my Instagram at Classye J, or you can email me at classy@shakeoutllc.com.
Awesome. Well, Classye, thank you for coming on and sharing on the Athlete Entrepreneur panel. Just some quick acknowledgements, not quick acknowledgements, but I just want to acknowledge you for who you've been in my life. We connected maybe a couple of years ago at this point, and it's just been really great running on this journey with you and watching you grow and flourish. And as I always say, your grind inspires my grind. So thank you for everything you do to the athlete, the current and former athlete community, not just directly, but indirectly. And obviously, we will be in touch for many more projects in the near future. I'm looking forward to that app. I'm gonna give me some tea. I'm looking forward to giving you a big hug at the conference when we finally meet in person. So that's it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. You have a good one, Classye. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Oh man. See, I love what I do, folks. This is beautiful. I get to have conversations with such great people. And speaking of great people, next up, we have Rachel Maeng Brown, the personal brand architect. She's a former student athlete at Rutgers University, where she was a Division I coxswain in the Big Ten. Side note, for those of you who don't know, because I had to be educated about this, maybe I'm just not cultured enough. A coxswain is the person who's in charge of guiding and directing the boat. So basically, Rachel was the quarterback of the boat. That's the best analogy I could think of. So you feel me? You'll see why that's relevant in just a few minutes too, why she's the quarterback of the boat and the quarterback of her life now. While in her undergrad at Rutgers, Rachel had a number of internships both within and outside of the sports industry. These internships and connections contributed to her new success as a full-time entrepreneur beginning in 2020. She spent time in professional and collegiate sports, media and entertainment, recruiting, financial services, data, marketing, technology, sponsorships, sales, nonprofit, and fashion. Today, she's a personal brand consultant, the director of strategic sports partnerships at Oxygen, right? The director of partnership and branding and marketing at Dome Audio Inc., the vocational and supported education specialist at TGCW nonprofit. She's also a CMO with Young's Sportswear, as well as a model and actor with prestigious image powerhouse. Damn, anything else? My goodness, look at that resume, folks. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Ms. Rachel Maeng Brown.
Wow, thanks for that intro, and also the quarterback. I never really thought about that. That's perfect.
I just came up with that on the spot. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to let people know what it is. So,
no,
Rachel, did I get all of that right?
What? Yeah, you got all that right. And no, that was a perfect visual.
People talk about wearing many hats, Rachel. I believe you're the epitome of wearing many hats. So, and I'm sure, either myself or the audience is going to have a ton of questions for you about how you've been able to put yourself in this position. But I'm just going to let you have the floor. Can you please just walk us through from A to Z how you've been able to accomplish all of this in such a short period of time?
Yeah, actually, so I am a graduate of the 2018 class of Rutgers. So I've only been out of school for a couple years. But yet, like I said, I was a coxswain at Rutgers. I'm from Syracuse, New York. So if you want to talk about snow, a foot of snow is nothing to me. But I came from there. I went to Rutgers, and then, like you said, I was a coxswain, and I was also involved in a number of organizations on campus, anything from our student government to working with special needs athletes to working with Rutgers athletics in general. So it was really a lot of that experience that I had as an undergraduate and as a student athlete, both kind of being a quarterback on the team and also being able to represent athletes to all these organizations that really gave me that like platform to speak my mind, to gain experience. And that kind of pushed me into my internships too. All of those really, I was so lucky to get as a student athlete and being able to just have internships as an undergrad. And really, it was really like all of those things, both organizations, being a student athlete, and internships that gave me the platform to be able to not only get a job after college, but then eventually choose to be an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's amazing. And then as you were getting all this experience, did you have a clear path mapped out for yourself? Or was it just kind of like, I'm gonna do as much stuff as possible so I'm in a good position no matter what?
Yeah, it was kind of like Classye said too, same mindset that you have to be really strategic. And that doesn't mean that you always know exactly what your future is going to be, but you have to be strategic in knowing that whatever you decide to do or where you put your energy is ultimately going to get you to whatever goal you have. So when I was a student athlete, obviously, you know, we practice 6 days a week, 1 to 2 times a day, really with rowing. We're really time intensive. And beyond that, you know, getting your schoolwork done, being in organizations, I knew that having a leadership role in these organizations would really set me up to be a better speaker, to present, and also to have a title where I could kind of speak off of a platform at other organizations too. So same thing, I was just really strategic with the choices I made of organizations to internships. And even though some things came up and they seemed really random at the time, they were definitely like eventually all part of the strategy. Even like most recently, I was with the New York Mets, the baseball team, and I had given up another position and moved to New York City for that job. And not only was one reason because I loved the director I work with, Kyle Ingram. He's amazing. He knows people so well. But also, I actually had the ability to gain sales experience. And obviously, as an entrepreneur, sales is something that you really need in your resume. So it was kind of like a 2-for-1. And even though it seemed really random in my career at the time, I knew it was going to eventually pay off. Oh, did I cut out?
I think so. The last thing I heard you say was a 2-for-1, but that's okay because I had a question for you that I wanted to ask anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask, so it sounds like you already had plans, at least maybe it was in the back of your mind, of becoming an entrepreneur after graduation. Or did it, because you only graduated 2 years ago, right?
I know.
That's the part that blows my mind. And you and I connected at some point last year. I think you were kind of like maybe
and I was
less than a year.
Too.
Right, you were. I remember that. And we had that conversation and we connected on a few different things. We obviously had similar mindsets. Yeah. And you told me about some of the things you had planned. And then we get off the phone and I watch like over the next year, even less than a year, you just take off. And I'm not just talking about on social media and all that too. That's great. But what I'm talking about is as far as all the different hats you wear, all the different things that you're doing, all the different titles you hold. I'm curious, just selfishly from my perspective, like, can you just walk us through? Okay, so you graduate, you walk across the stage, and then like, what was the order of operations? I named off like 5 different things that you're doing. How did, like, from A to Z, what was the first one, and then how did you maneuver to the next one? Like, just please share that journey.
Yeah, some of it is random, some of it was strategy, and some of it was just dumb luck, honestly. Like that's so but yeah, like I knew as an undergrad, actually the crazy thing is for like anyone that's a student that's on here, I started out pre-med biomedical engineering. I came from a like 4-year college program in my high school, and that's what I was going to do. I did a little under 2 years of that at Rutgers, and then like conflicts with my practice, which you guys all know. And then just like time and kind of like figuring out who I was, I realized I needed to go into business and economics. And that was just going to give me the business background that I need to do what I wanted to do. And it was kind of at that point, I decided I wanted to eventually be an entrepreneur, but I also knew I really wanted to help people. And I was trying to kind of figure out my way of how I was going to do that. And so by starting off, it was the organizations on campus, being a representative of student athletes to the rest of the university. That was like my first step. And then every summer since my freshman year, I did an internship, and I kind of like balanced that with practice, with also taking summer classes. And all of that was strategic too. Like I knew if I wanted to build a business, I really needed to have a hand or experience in every aspect of business, whether it was recruiting and staffing or logistics, supply chain management, data analytics, like all of it really, to understand what it took to build my own business. And then after graduation, I worked full-time as a recruiter so I could understand career management, understand like staffing, things like that. And then I jumped into recruiting back at football at Rutgers. Because it's my alma mater and I have so much love for my school. They're really the ones that like put me on. They're really the ones that like gave me my platform. And then from there, I went to the Mets and I knew I needed sales. And then after about 9 months there, I really felt like not only was my contract up, so it was time to go, but I had this feeling that I was calm in making my decision that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I knew I had enough, at least on paper, and enough in my head of experience of things that I had done to help me be an entrepreneur and help me like build a platform to help people. So I think it was like end of November, beginning of January. I was full-time entrepreneur, just like building out my own website, like working on it 24/7. And then I just kind of like jumped and I got one position and I worked at that really hard. And then I networked, I got another position. I worked at that really hard. And it's kind of been like rolling from there.
Oh, it sure has been rolling. That's an understatement. It's been rolling all right. Right. It's been full speed ahead.
Oh my gosh,
I think it's really smart that you realized you had enough skills that you had accumulated to be able to branch off and do your own thing. I alluded to that earlier where, I took the full leap and probably left my full-time job prematurely. But, I was in recruiting as well. I worked several different jobs leading up to me branching off into full-time entrepreneurship. But I think that that's a great way to look at it. I was talking to someone, I don't know if you're familiar with Jacoby Gilliam, but one of the conversations I had with him, and he was saying that he treated every single job like an internship for his business.
Or an interview, yes.
I like that. And it sounds like you did a great job of doing that. One of the first businesses that you started, and I believe this is when we connected back in I think it was last year at some point where you told me about this.
2019 only.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. The Legacy brand, right?
Yeah.
And that was, can you just talk about what that is and why you chose to go that direction?
Yeah. So really what that is for me now, it's obviously changed so much as I've grown it out. It's almost like the platform that I base all of my branding off of. So I call myself the personal brand architect. What I do is help individuals, businesses, and athletes really use their story to build their brand, because you yourself are a business and you should treat it like that. Just like I was really strategic with treating every job like an interview, and also making sure I had all the experiences, the identity, the loyalty, everything like behind me. We should be doing that too. And that's really, how I built my platform, was off of that. And then from there, I kind of, like worked hard, kept my network, and I'm really, really intentional with relationship management and relationship networking. And that's kind of how I took that step into the other businesses, where the Legacy brand now is still that platform that I work off of. But now I have all these titles that I've been really lucky to acquire. And that gives me more like credibility, more expertise. And it makes me a stronger, like per se, expert in the field, where when I do panels or when I speak to people, I have a little bit more of a platform to speak off of. So really the Legacy brand, it's still what I do. I still do work with the individuals on it, but it really served me as like the platform to get me started.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the panel is because when I look at your journey, or even just when you're talking right now, one thing that comes across is fearlessness, and and the reason I bring that up is because I've worked with a lot of former athletes through their transition, and a lot of them, maybe because they're working with me, I think I just attract this type of person. They have entrepreneurial ideas, and sometimes I have to coach them through being scared, and I point them to people like you. I point them to people like Classye. Like, look at what these people have been able to accomplish just by not being scared and just going for something. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, can you give advice to that former athlete right now who may have ideas about what they want to do, but they're hesitant, maybe they have some self-doubt or imposter syndrome going on? just what would you say to that person, if you can even relate? Because you probably came out
Yeah.
the womb fearless, you know what I mean? But
yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how I could follow up after Classye. She was like business idea after business idea, so fearless. But yeah, I don't know. For myself, it was kind of, I've never really thought of things as something I couldn't do. And I think I've been really lucky that this idea of glass ceilings, even like in the space of diversity, being like an Asian American woman of color, like I've never really thought of the things that I am or like what I could or couldn't do as a barrier. And in an athlete sense, like there's always things, obviously, you know, I can't just go be like XYZ, but I can kind of like work towards that and I can do things around it. But, you know, as an athlete, we kind of already are fearless. So for it to not translate into business, there's kind of a disconnect there. Because if you think about it, like as an athlete, like you're going to go for that max rep. You're going to do everything you can to be the best you can. And for the people who made professional leagues and were lucky enough to, they've done everything. They've been fearless. They've put their life on hold to like be a professional athlete. So why shouldn't that translate over to business? Like if you have an idea, run with it. Just like if you want to put in the extra time at your sport, like you want to be out like running extra, like on the field, you want to be like in the pool, you want to be on the water, erging, whatever. Put that into your business. Like you can have, like Classye said, a full-time job and also be an entrepreneur or have entrepreneurial ideas and later figure out how to act on them or act on them today. I think there's a disconnect between being an athlete and being fearless and like putting yourself out there and then switching it to the business side. And I think if more people just look at it like there's no reason you couldn't be a great athlete in college and there's no reason you can't be a great professional after college. I think that they really relate. And as soon as people start seeing that anything's possible, if you do it, then I think it opens up a lot of doors.
Bars. See? Anybody who's having doubt, they need to reach out to you so they get that pep talk. You know what I mean? You got me ready to run through a brick wall right now. So that's it. Why not? There's no excuses. There's a disconnect. I like that. That's some tough love right there. Like, hey, there's a disconnect if you're not ready to take that leap and go for it. I love that.
Well, that's okay. Like it takes time, you know, because I didn't come out of college and just went straight into entrepreneurship. Like I took my time. I made sure I knew exactly like what I wanted to do, how I wanted to help people, things like that. So it doesn't mean that like tomorrow someone's going to be an entrepreneur. It might mean that tomorrow you recognize that you have an entrepreneurial spirit or that you have a great business idea, and then taking the time to figure out like how that's going to translate into either making passive income or becoming a passion or becoming like your source of income and creating generational wealth. So not to say that, you know, everyone's path is different and you never know which one you're going to go down.
I love that. Yeah, that was well said. And then another thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to you, I'm like, I see you doing so many different things and they're all aligned, but it's almost like you're putting your foot into different arenas is what I mean. It's all connected. It all comes from the same source of helping people in some way. And that makes me curious as to, you already have so much going on. It's not going to slow down from here. You know, what is the future? What is it that you're building towards long term?
I know, like I try to focus so much. I like in 2020 with everything changing, like we can't focus like too far ahead. For me, 2020, 2021 is really going to be about focusing just on the today. Like, how can I help the people that are in my inbox right now? How can I help the people that I'm speaking on the panel to? And how can I grow and build the companies that I'm working with right now? I think long term, no matter what company I'm in, no matter what I'm doing, it's really all about for me just helping people. And I think of recent, especially with like my ability to like have influence on social media for my space in acting. And then I was just able to sign to prestigious as an actor and a model too. Like that's such a new space. And there's so many people that are underrepresented. Like we're dealing with social injustice now. So really my thought process is as much as all of those kind of connect and like I have strategy behind them, it's really just all about helping people. And so with all the things that I'm doing going forward, I'm not 100% sure of where exactly I'll be in the future, but I know it'll always relate back to like helping people and being a representative of like the athletic community, of a former athlete, of Rutgers, of like Asian American women of color, of women in business in general in sports. Like it's always going to be about being a good representation and being able to help and empower.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, that's an awesome message that you have. No matter what you're doing, it all comes back to helping people and empowering others. I think that's major. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning. For anybody who's listening, please don't be shy. Feel free to drop a question. If you have a question for Rachel, this is the opportunity. You know what I mean? Drop something in there, ask her a question. She's a busy woman. You got access right now. So go ahead and put the question in there. Selfishly, I'm going to ask you a question right now that I'm curious about. So, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things you've been excellent at is just executing on social media. Not just one platform, but every platform. So, nowadays, obviously, your social media is a key ingredient in anything you're doing. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you got to have your social media going no matter what you're doing. And everyone's looking to, crack the code. How do I get all these followers? How do I, become an influencer? How do I get partnerships? I watched you just explode, like I said, in a year's time. So what was the methodology behind that? Is there anything you can share that had you have that rapid growth?
Yeah. I think I've been really, really lucky. Like I said, like I'm very big on networking, very big on relationship management. So I'm so lucky that I have so many colleagues and friends and also mentors that maybe know the space a little bit better than I do. And like other areas too, that they've really helped me. And then on top of that, I did some research for myself. And then I was lucky enough to partner up with people who kind of helped me along the way. There's not necessarily one like secret sauce to it. And you can buy a like unimaginable amount of content creation of like guides and things like that from, people who specialize in that type of thing. But what it all comes down to is like your brand. Who you are is like you have your own story behind you, and your brand is you, and you're a business. So when it comes to pitching ideas to sponsors, or it comes to connecting with your audience, it's all about who you are. And if you're not authentic and you don't like share the message as who you are, no matter what you want your brand to be on social media or even like to the world, that's one of the most important parts. And then consistency as well. Just always making sure whatever you're putting out there, it's always representing your brand and always representing like who you are and what you want your message to be. And then also a little bit of like consistency as far as actually like putting out posts on time and like things like that. But it's really just, there's no secret sauce. In my opinion, there's a lot of ways you can do it. And I can't say that I had like a 100% strict methodology to how I did it. It just, I tried to be authentic. I tried to be consistent, and I just got really lucky that I kind of like struck up the right conversation. I signed the right contract, and that I am where I am today.
Wow, that's strong advice. There's a couple of different gems you dropped that I wanted to hit on for a second. The fact about that you touched on being yourself and being consistent, as you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm looking for some, like you said, secret sauce. But as I've watched you, that's what you've been doing. You've just been being yourself, and you're on there multiple times a day across all platforms. So I think that really is the key. And I think that's important for people to hear, because so many people get caught up in, I have to do this, this, and that, or I have to portray myself a certain way, or I have to have all the right, fonts and everything has to look beautiful, rather than just going on there and being yourself consistently.
Yeah. And there are influencers, educators, coaches, everything that go on there and they're very purposeful with what they put out, because that has to do with their brand too, is like the aesthetic of it and how it looks. And that's great. And, there are other people who have so many followers, like TikTok, especially, where they're very authentic. Like they're just putting things out. And it's authentic to your brand no matter what you do. Because I have a puppy. She's completely crazy. I don't know if you saw it, but on my Instagram the other day, I was filming a virtual casting, and my dog, like as I'm trying to speak out like, hi, my hometown is blah blah blah, I'm trying out for whatever role, my dog starts crying and knocks over the camera. So like that's part of my life too, and that's not classy, but that's part of my life. And it was just like an authentic, funny thing I put out there too.
I did see that. I thought that was really funny. And I thought that the fact that you're showing that, like, you're not perfect, it helps other people realize, oh, I don't have to be perfect either if Rachel's not on here trying to act like she has it all together,
Yeah. As much as I think you keep saying like, oh my gosh, growth in such a short amount of time. Like I've been working really hard, and it may not always look like it, but like there's so many things that go on behind the scenes, like that aren't perfect, that aren't like what people like aspire to. It's so much else going on. So if you can just be authentic about that, then that's really important to growth.
Awesome, awesome. Speaking of growth, Emmanuel has a question. He wants to know, how do you evaluate the brands that you want to work with? That's a great question, Emmanuel.
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with authenticity too. Like, I know for myself, I've been offered to work with brands that are like certain supplements or like phone cases and things like that. And that's not really me, you know, like exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
There's so many products out there today, but it's not really me. Like I've been lucky I worked with Revive Superfoods, which is like an all natural vegan frozen smoothie pack. You get a subscription. They're great. That's me because I'm really plant-based and I need a smoothie. I can add my protein like right after I lift as a former student athlete. So it was authentic and it was consistent with my brand. So when I'm looking at either brands to work with, individuals to work with, someone to even like put my name and my brand behind, I'm always going to make sure that, like I said, they're authentic and consistent to my message and to who I am.
Another message, Rachel, because some people might see that check and they're like, I'll take it. I'll do it. It has nothing to do with my brand or anything.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, definitely. And if you think about it too, like a lot of athletes, like professional athletes specifically, there are so many opportunities that they can find, they can source, they can sign to, but you want to be consistent with your message too. Because if you think about it, a lot of these big brands, and we want to treat ourselves like brands too, they're not going to pick an athlete who doesn't go along with their message. They're going to pick a family guy to go along with their family message. So you should be just as intentional if you want to be just as successful.
Well said, well said. And earlier, you touched on mentors because, you know, when I asked you about how you were able to carve that out, you said you sought out and gravitated and connected with the right people. And I think that's a major key, you know, something that, you know, once I came out of my shell, being isolated and feeling sorry for myself, something I immediately started doing was reaching out to people and being like, hey, I need some help, number one. And then as I got clear on the direction I was going, reaching out to people like Jonathan Orr, who's coming up on the panel, and seeking out mentorship and guidance from people. So can you speak to, for anyone listening right now, current former athletes, like what is the importance of seeking out good quality mentorship? And then also, what is the process for finding those people and connecting with them?
Right. I think there's so many keys, but first off, networking and like even mentorship, everything, it's a relationship. So when people say like, oh, I know so-and-so or I network with so-and-so, just because you connected with them on LinkedIn, you had a message, it doesn't mean you know them or they know you. Because really when it comes down to it, like if you want to get a job, you want to build a connection, it's not about who you know, it's about who can speak about you. So it doesn't just end with like one phone conversation. It always continues to when you check up with them, how you update them, how you check in on them and their family, their endeavors, everything. So I think it's a really important part of networking is it doesn't just stop at the first conversation. It's a relationship. And beyond that, I think I've been really lucky to target and then sustain relationships with so many mentors, whether they're lateral, they're underneath me, or they're even above me, because you never know where someone's going to end up. Like, I think it's so important that especially for people who are young, even people that are older, that when you look for mentors, you look for colleagues in your space or even sponsors. And those are people who can actually like hire you today. You don't just look at people who are like way above you, like the C-suites, the executives, because, you know, like I was a entry-level position at the Mets, and today I'm in a position where I'm actually starting to look to hire a few people in a couple different companies. And that was a year ago. So you never know where you're going to end up or where the person sitting next to you or the intern underneath you is going to end up. So I think when it comes to building that network of colleagues, of mentors and sponsors, you just have to look everywhere. Like you can be very intentional, but you have to be accepting of anyone that's willing to build that relationship with you.
I love that. And I love that you didn't just touch on the fact of, or mentor, you talked about colleagues and peers and people that you can run, people that you could even bring up, you know, who may be kind of want to be in your shoes. I think that's key. Like the proof is in the pudding. Here we are because you saw what I was doing last year. You reached out and then we have this connection and I'm watching you take off and I'm like, oh, now I'm hosting these panels. We got to have people on the panel. But that doesn't happen without you in that connection. And not just, you know, copy and pasting a message on LinkedIn, but actually looking to connect and establish a relationship. So amazing stuff, Rich. I know everybody wants to get in touch with you. If they're not following you already, they're going to be following you now. So please tell everyone how they can reach out and follow your journey and all the great stuff you got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me at Rachel Maeng, Maeng. It's on my tagline here on Instagram. And then there's a link tree on there with all my contact information, every platform I'm on, my website. My email address is also there. And my LinkedIn also has my email addresses, the websites I'm on, things like that. So really, if I know Classye said it before too, like we're all so willing to help you as well. But if you have any question, even if you think it's stupid, I will answer it because, I'm very young to the entrepreneurship space, to the business world. I graduated in 2018. So I know exactly what everyone's gone through within a couple years. So I'm more than willing to help, put you in touch with someone if I can, or even eventually hire you.
Oh, there you go. I think that's really generous of you. That's huge, especially offering, hey, you never know. If you play your cards right, you might be able to work alongside Rachel. So
yeah, you never know. Exactly. Networking.
You never know. With that being said, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm super, for what it's worth, I'm super proud of you and everything you've accomplished. You're an inspiration to me. There's a dog, see?
I know. Of course she's going off.
Hey, she stayed quiet the whole time. So it's not bad if she jumps on at the end. But anyway, Rachel, really great to have you. Thank you again. Everybody, please go get in touch with Rachel, follow what she's doing. And we will be in touch for many more projects, I'm sure, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, have a good one. Take care.
You too.
Man, y'all better get in touch with Rachel, folks. She's giving out jobs, giving out information. Better make it happen. All right, next up, this is a really awesome moment for me because this is someone that I look up to greatly. I'm sure we'll get into the story a little bit. Let me introduce him first, and then we'll bring him on. So Jonathan Orr is a former NFL player and the founder of Athlete Transition Services. After a successful college career at the University of Wisconsin and 2 seasons in the NFL playing for the Tennessee Titans and the Oakland Raiders, Jonathan began his transition to life after athletics. He then established ATS, Athlete Transition Services, to help have a successful and healthy transition into the next phase of their lives. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Mr. Jonathan Orr.
Hey, Taj. How's it going,
What's going on, big bro? Oh, man.
I'm so excited to be on with you here this afternoon where I am. It's still morning where you are, right? Is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's 11 o'clock out here in San Diego. Yes, sir.
Pleasure to be on with you.
It's a pleasure to be here. We're going to dive into it. Before we get into it, I have to just acknowledge, I'm going to start up front with the acknowledgements. I'm going to get mushy right out the gate. So here we go. Jonathan has been a major influence, inspiration, mentor, someone that I've had conversations with this man just when I needed to get stuff off my chest. So, and this just goes to show you for all the current former athletes listening, by making that connection, like Rachel and I were just talking about, by reaching out to people who are doing what you already want to do or people who inspire you, you never know where this relationship is going to lead. Almost over 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I reached out to Jonathan on LinkedIn, like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'm looking to do something similar. And since then, just the guidance and wisdom I've gotten has been out of this world. I even last month or a couple of months ago, whenever it was, Jonathan even invited me to speak. So the honor of Jonathan thinking enough of me to invite me onto his platform to speak was a very humbling moment for me. And it all comes back to getting in touch with people who you feel like are inspiring you and seeking their guidance and wisdom. So with that being said, Jonathan, obviously we're here to celebrate. We're not really here to talk about too much about the struggle of the transition. We're here to celebrate everything you've accomplished afterwards. But I think it's important for the audience just to hear what it was like for you after you played your last game and all the challenges that happened afterwards.
Yeah, man. And before I even get into that, Taj, I want you to know I think the world of you, man. I remember when we first connected a few years ago, and you were telling me your vision and the passion that you had to work in this area and to see your grind and where it has led to. It encourages me. It inspires me, man. So know that the feeling is mutual. And that I have much respect for you as well, man. So hats off to you.
Thank you, please don't make me emotional. I know, you know what I'm saying?
No, but to answer your question, first of all, I was planning on a much longer career in the NFL. It ended up being 2 years. I was planning on 20. And so I was that's once it ended, that sparked for me a very just hard time, man. I often say it was the hardest 2 years of my life once it was over, just trying to figure out who I was without football, trying to figure out what else God put me on this earth to do, right? And now, at that time, I wasn't aware of any research that had been done, but now it's being more and more research being done. So we know that a lot of time when sports are over for elite athletes, elite being college professional athletes, that their struggles are oftentimes tied to identity issues and then career fulfillment, right? Like those are the two major issues that athletes struggle with, and I was no different. And so I struggled for a couple of years, thank God, through awesome support system. My wife was amazing, had a great pastor at the time, even sought a mental health professional that was instrumental during that time. And so just a great support system and figuring out and really relying on the Lord to show me what else he put me on this earth to do. And so I was able to figure that out, man, and started moving forward. But then I started noticing, Taj, that a lot of my former teammates and just athletes I knew in general were having similar struggles. And so that's what eventually led to me starting Athlete Transition Services.
That's amazing, Jonathan. One of the coolest parts about it to me is like when I was starting out, I had you to look to, you know, for inspiration or just to know that, okay, there's actually a need for this and there's people doing great work in this area supporting current and former athletes. But at the time that you were starting out, was there really anything going on in this type of realm where you were like, I mean, I consider you one of the pioneers of the industry, obviously, but did you have anyone to look to, or was it like nothing going on at the time?
So the NFL, they had some resources. It wasn't what it is now. You figure this is almost 15 years ago. No, not 15 years ago. This was 2008, so 12 years ago. So it's come a long way. I wasn't aware of. There are some individuals. Dr. Mark Robinson. I don't know if you know Dr. Mark. He's instrumental in athletic identity and transitioning. He's out of California, and there were a few individuals, man, that was kind of working in this space, but I wasn't aware of them at the time. So I felt like there was no support on a professional standpoint that could help me with that transition. And so think like when I came out of college, all we had was academic support and obviously, the weightlifting coach and things like that. But there was no student athlete development department. And I look at my alma mater today, they have multiple departments servicing the overall growth and development of student athletes, preparing them for life after sports. So the industry is growing, which is tremendous. And I'm just glad to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And then one of the things when I initially started researching ATS and researching everything you were doing, one of the things that I like most about it is that it was a holistic approach. So you see, and I'm not trying to knock anybody or throw anybody under the bus, but you see a lot of stuff where certain companies or certain organizations offer, okay, we're going to teach you how to prepare for an interview, or, we got these jobs lined up for you. We got this for you, ready to go. Go ahead and take it. Whereas the work that you're doing and do is solely focused on preparation for the transition, understanding from an emotional, mental, physical, spiritual perspective, like what they can expect and how to prepare for it in advance. Why was that important to you as you were developing your curriculum to be able to have that holistic approach, make sure all the bases were covered when dealing with current and former athletes?
Yeah, man, good question. I think because when you look at that transition and why it's important and why so many athletes struggle, because it's hard to nail down like one area, right? So what we did, we kind of worked backwards. We said, okay, when you look at athletes that are in this phase of life and they're having struggles, what are these struggles primarily related to, right? And so it's financial often with the professional athletes. It's that personal aspect, right? That psychological, that mental aspect, the internal stuff. It's professional. Oftentimes it's relational, right? One of the things I'm so happy that the NFL now is providing services for the whole family unit, understanding that it's not just the retired player that's going through it, but it's the spouse, it's the children, right? And so I think that's awesome. And so it's these different areas that make up or that lead to the issues that athletes often struggle with. And so we said, okay, if we know this is the end result, then how can we prepare athletes in these different areas along the way so that once they get to that point in their life, they're not completely caught off guard, but they've done some level of preparation in these different areas, even if it's just the awareness of knowing that there is a potential for challenges in this area, right? Like that's so huge. Just knowing that you can face this. It's almost like, you know, you never go into a game if you have at least a good coach without a game plan, right? Like your coach prepares you that week with the game plan. If you were to, you know, get ready to go play a game, any sport, and you have no game plan, it's like your chances of being successful are slim to none. And so I approach this the same way. So many athletes enter into this phase of life without any sort of game plan, and consequently they're hit off guard, and it can cause years of setbacks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's amazing also to watch. Not only did you have that full spectrum of services right out the gate, but really over the past, I'd say the past year, you've really expanded not only the team, but the services that you offer. Like you said, you touched on that whole family unit and the work you're doing with the NFL. You and Mrs. Orr helping families actually understand what the transition is about and giving them tools to navigate those waters. Obviously, a lot of people, if they haven't heard ATS already, they're going to be doing a whole bunch of research after this. But I think it's best to get it from the source. Can you just talk about, like, I mean, if we have, can you just talk about all the different services that ATS offers?
Yeah, man. So you said something interesting. So in the beginning, it was just one service, right? And
really? Okay.
Yeah, it was. A lot of people don't realize that. My whole thing was I wanted to do something to prepare athletes for the transition as it relates to the internal stuff, the emotional stuff, right? Because that's what, like, a lot of time, you know, you're gonna have to find a job, right? And so you know those type of things, but what catches a lot of athletes off guard is the mental aspect, the psychological aspect. So that's how we started off. But then we started noticing that we need to address these other areas too. And so we started slowly adding over time different programming. So currently, our program, we offer 3 types of services. One, which is what we've been primarily known for. One is the workshops, the life skills and student or athlete development workshops. So under that, you know, it's the financial literacy, it's a career, it's the transition out of sports stuff, it's the mental health stuff. So we offer a variety of different workshops and seminars to support athletes in that regards. Then we have our mental health services. And so, and coaching services. So we have a team of clinicians as well as coaches that provide small group, individual, the one-on-one stuff to help athletes that need that require a little more support than just the group courses that we do in workshops. And then the newest thing that we started providing in this last year is our professional development for coaches and administrators. Because the thought behind that is if we can help coaches and administrators, those who have that close contact with athletes on a regular basis, if we can help them be the best they can be, right? And as well as give them insight of what they can do to better support and facilitate the overall growth and development of their athletes, then that'll trickle down to the athletes and help them as well. So those are the 3 types of services we offer.
That's really exciting stuff, Jonathan. I'm excited for obviously everything you're already doing, but for the future of what ATS holds, because obviously this is only the beginning. You just get, you know, haven't even left the locker room yet. You still get taped up. I think that's really exciting stuff. And obviously, you know, we're here to talk about entrepreneurship and just aspiring the next generation of up and coming athletes to really, at the very least, consider carving out their own lane or building something that supports the causes that they believe in, as you know, everyone on here has done. And ATS is a nonprofit, and I had Marcus Austin on the last panel from Austin for Athletes, and his organization is a nonprofit as well. And one of the things I spoke about with him, and I really try to get this message across, is you can still be an entrepreneur. Like, you have to have entrepreneurial tendencies to be able to build a nonprofit or a for-profit business. There's really no difference. You're still building something and having an idea on your head and organizing a team to be able to execute on that. So obviously, when you first started out, ATS was not your full-time role, right? You were working a job, and I think it would be important for people to hear how you made that transition to going full speed and full time into building ATS.
Yeah, man, I remember that was one of the first conversations you and I had. We were talking about
it was.
Because I think at the time you were considering leaving your job or something like that. Like you needed to find another job that would allow you to build your business. And I remember talking about that.
Yeah,
but yeah, man,
I had already quit.
That's what it was.
I had already quit when I called you. I was like, I'm doing this. I don't want to work a job anymore. I'm helping athletes. So
yeah, man, I remember that. And so yeah, man. So ATS will be 7 years old in January. And
man, congratulations. We need an air horn or something. We need to
right. And so those first 5.5 years was just and it's still a grind, right? Just to be completely honest. But I was working full time. There was a time in there, and because we launched in January 2014. In 2015, I lost my job. I got laid off, and I took 6 months to instead of just going to get a job right away. I talked about it with my wife. ATS at the time was 1.5 years old, and we decided to, I would take 6 months and just focus on the business and get it up to the next level. So I did that. It still wasn't where it needed to be. So I went back to work, got a 9 to 5, and was working for a company from 2015 to about 2018. So about 3 years. And then it got to the point again where I didn't lose my job, but it was at the point where we had saw so much growth with ATS, but still I realized it wasn't where it needed to be, where it should be. And so again, prayed about it. And my wife and I were on the same page, and we decided that in June of 2018, it was time for me to leave my job. And I didn't want to look up 5-10 years from now and wonder what if I would have, gave it all I had, right? Like, it's scary because, I have a family and children and responsibilities, but at the same time, it was just something that we knew I had to do. And so since June of 2018, I've been full-time with it. Wish I could say it's been easy. It hasn't, especially in this line of work. It's not, and the goal is to get to a place where you have a sustainable revenue and a base budget, right? And we're getting to that point. We got some exciting things in the works, but a lot of time it's, if you don't work, if you're not out there grinding and getting opportunities, then you don't get paid. So it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of months not knowing sort of what the income will be, and some months are amazing, right? And you're like, man, if I can carry this on every month, then I'll be, it'll be good. But so yeah, man, this is the main thing, man. It's been ups and downs, peaks and valleys. What I've learned though is that what I encourage anybody thinking about getting into entrepreneurship is that you have to keep going, right? Like it's going to be times where you might think like, man, is this even worth it? If do people even believe that my service or what I'm offering is worth hiring? But as long as you believe it and you know in your heart, man, and this is what you've been called to do, right? And you're making a difference, keep going. And things have a way of working themselves out. And so, but yeah, to say the least, it has not been easy. It's still not easy, but I appreciate the growth, what we've been able to accomplish, but it's still so much more to do. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing all that, it's not always easy. And one of the things that I really liked the most that you shared was that your fear of having regret about not going all in was enough to overpower the fear of going all in. And I think that's one of the most inspiring things about your story, the fact that you were able to do that. And like the proof is in the pudding. Ever since you took the leap, it's just been exponential growth, And I feel like it's one of those things also where the timing of it, obviously it's unfortunate what the world is going through with COVID. But specifically speaking to athletes, it's one of those, if you build it, they will come type situations. So I don't think it's a coincidence that, okay, you decided to go all in, and then, a little bit over a year later, COVID happens and all these athletes need support. And I think another thing, this is just me being selfish, just, give you a whole bunch of praise about what you're doing. Like, I think you've done a really great job of providing resources, even though, athletic departments don't necessarily have the budget. You found other ways to give back. Like the second Sunday speaker series that I was, fortunate enough that you invited me on to speak. I think that's really awesome that you're doing that. If you could you please for a second about, I don't know if there's anything else besides the second Sunday speaker series, but other things that you're doing just to support during these times?
Yeah, man. So one of the benefits, and you said this earlier, which I think is key. A lot of people, they hear 501c3 or a not-for-profit organization, and they think like, they're not making revenue, right? But the whole thing is our purpose, the reason we exist is the primary reason is not to generate revenue, right? Like we're filling a gap, we're filling a need in society that either government doesn't fulfill or the educational system doesn't fulfill. Like that's the purpose of a nonprofit, to fill those gaps in society. So with that being said, we still we believe so much in what we're doing, and we understand the need for it, that it's important for us to, even in the midst of everything going on and budget cuts and all of that, it's important to still be able to provide these services. So one of the things we've been able to leverage is our 501c3 status, and raise funds, right, through private donors, through corporate sponsors, and also and now we're seeking some funding from some foundations right now, to some grants. So we can still provide the services. There's no cost to the institutions that don't have the resources, but yet we still can, stay afloat and still fulfill our purpose of preparing athletes for life after sports. And so we've been able to already raise some funds, that we've been able to provide services for some universities at no cost to them, through the generosity of donors and corporate giving campaigns, and it's been a huge blessing during these times. And so we want to continue to do that throughout the pandemic, and even after that, right? Because some institutions, not everybody has a Power 5 budget, right? And not everybody has the ability to bring in speakers or to hire somebody to do this type of work. So that's definitely a goal of ours, to continue to leverage those corporate sponsorships and donors and things like that to be able to provide resources to those who need it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you've been able to do that, where a lot of people, they don't have the resources, but despite the resources, you're still contributing. You're still, contributing to the cause that you set out to contribute to, even if there's no monetary gain, which I think speaks volumes about, what the mission of ATS is all about. So really appreciate you sharing that. I want to get to Emmanuel Mio's question, because I think it's an excellent question. And just some context, the reason he was asking this, because quick plug for Emmanuel, he's the founder of socialaim.co, which encourages social entrepreneurship, where basically athletes or people in general contribute through their businesses, for profit or nonprofit, to the world at large, which I think is an excellent mission. Social entrepreneurship is a term that I actually learned from him. And obviously, both Jonathan and I are social entrepreneurs, and everyone, as well as everyone on this panel. But Emmanuel's question is, based on your experience with many services, are there any areas or industries that you feel that more athletes should be involved in as entrepreneurs? That's a great question. What do you think about that, Jonathan?
Man, I think very good question, Emmanuel. I think by virtue of and I don't want to generalize, right, but by virtue of the makeup of a lot of athletes and the transferable skills that they've acquired, I think sales is all, like, a lot of athletes do well in sales. So whatever you're interested in selling, for some reason, a lot of them have success, right, and pushing products and services. So that's one. As it relates specifically to entrepreneurship for athletes, not one that stands out to me, right? I think it's about what, again, one of the things that we work with athletes in one of our transition sessions is figuring out what you're passionate about, what you're good at, right? Like what you have gifts and talents in, and then and figuring out a way to merge those two for career opportunities. And so, if you have the desire to be an entrepreneurship, I would strongly, suggest exploring what moves you, right? Like what motivates you in this world, and possibly carving out a lane in whatever area that is, and then figuring out what you're good at, right? Like, you got to be good at it too. If not, you can be passionate about it and suck at it, and you might not have that much success. So.
Right. I think that's a great way to answer it. Like you said, just my 2 cents on that. There's no area that athletes should necessarily be involved in. It's like for them to decide, like you said, and that's the work that you and I both do, is helping with that discovery process. But I think, thinking outside of the box and finding ways, like you said, where you can be passionate about it, but also have something to offer that is beneficial to others, not just beneficial to you because you enjoy doing it, like you said, is a major ingredient in finding that formula for entrepreneurship or just success in general after you're done playing your sport. So something else I wanted to ask you, and I was taking notes on this earlier, I forgot to get to it, was how you mentioned you left the job to go full speed with ATS. and then eventually at one point had to go back. So once again, just the vulnerability of being able to share that, because I've worked many odd jobs in between when I first called you and I quit my job in 2018, many odd jobs in between to sustain myself as I was continuing to build. I think a lot of people, especially, you know, I know folks who are moving back in with their parents and stuff right now. Can you just speak a little bit to putting your pride to the side and doing what is necessary? You know, I spoke about this when you had me come talk, doing what you have to do so that you can do what you want to do, but never losing sight of your mission. Can you just speak a little bit about the importance in your own life, or just some general advice of doing what you have to do so you can do what you want to do and staying true to your path?
Yeah, man. So, and I tell my wife this all the time, like if I have to go work at, nothing wrong with it, but if I had to go work at McDonald's, right, midnight shift, and no,
I know.
or Walmart, McDonald's, like whatever I got to do, man, to take care of my responsibility, like, you know, my family, like if it comes to that, right, like if I'm just not able to generate the income that I need, and you know, my wife is an entrepreneur too, but if some reason, you know, that's not panning out, which thank God it has, she's just killing it in her area, but anyway, like responsibilities are responsibilities, right? And so it doesn't mean that I think a lot of time we had this mindset like, oh, I'm a quitter or I'm giving up. That's not the case, man. You have to adapt sometime. And it doesn't mean that you won't necessarily come back to it. But if you see your situation isn't working out and you're not able to do what you need to do, like for your, you know, be a responsible adult, then if you have to go get another job and cut back a little bit, still build it when you can, then that's fine, man. It's so many entrepreneurs who have success and we see them, you know, at the peak of their career, but there's so many like that have stories of failed businesses, right? This didn't work out, so they tried this. And some, you know, it doesn't work out to them till they're in their, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s before they finally hit it. And so, you know, it's not a failure until you absolutely give up and quit. But if you have to go get a job, if you have to cut back on your entrepreneur endeavor to take care of your responsibilities, there's nothing wrong with it. And I don't have a problem doing it again. You know, it's been a few times, even since 2018, that I put in, you know, that I've sought employment, you know, other time, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work out, which I took as God's way of showing me, nah, I want you to stay here and focus on this. So, so I'm still here, but if I needed to, I would. I remember time. I remember one time. You remember? Weren't you doing windshields, fixing windshields or something?
It was installing glass. Yeah,
installing glass.
Yeah. Even earlier this year, I was doing that for several months. Yeah, installing glass. I would have coaching clients in the morning if they were on the East Coast. You know, so I would do my calls at like 5, 6 a.m. Go to work, install glass all day, come home, work on some content or something at night. So yeah, installing shower doors. Nothing to do with my degree, you know, but I knew, hey, it's easy work. I can make overtime, and I can still have enough energy to do what I need to do.
And you know what, Taj? It's something about having the hope, right, or the vision, right? Like to know that even I remember when I first started ATS. I don't know if I shared this with you, but the first 8 months, I heard no. I was calling people every single day. Universities, I heard no for 8 months, man. But and this is important to know that regardless of the setbacks that you face or the barriers you face, man, knowing, man, that eventually is going to turn around. And all it takes is one yes, one opportunity, one huge deal. I have a buddy who and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little off track though. He's an entrepreneur. He just wrote a book. I played with him in college. He's a former Marine, and he runs this incredible nonprofit called. They actually at the ESPYs last year that they were the nonprofit of the year, man. And he got up and accepted the award at the ESPYs. It's called Team Rubicon. So they give former military professionals opportunities to still utilize their skill set in natural disasters. So awesome nonprofit. But I remember talking to him and he was saying how I look at where his organization is now and they're all over the world, man, thousands of members and just doing incredible work. And but I remember him saying like, man, those first couple of years, like it was a struggle. And I think they were thinking about maybe even closing down shop or something, but they got one phone call that changed the course of their nonprofit. Like I think some big organization had some extra funds and wrote them a check that literally allowed them to start hiring folks. So man, just knowing like that, all it takes is just keep going, right? Even when it gets hard, keep going and have enough belief and hope in the vision that God has given you, man, that it'll work out. So
that's super inspiring, Jonathan. I know people are gonna get so much out of this. Like I'm sitting here getting inspired all over again. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I really needed any extra inspiration, but it never hurts. So I really do appreciate you sharing that, being vulnerable about your journey too. Could you please just tell everybody how they can support, how they can get in touch with ATS, find out more information, just for anybody tuning in who wants to go do some research or just support the movement? Please let everybody know all that information.
Sure. So, yep, you can visit our website, atscorp.org. So that's atscorp.org. You can also contact me or follow me on social media. It's JORR, so JORR_ATS. That's for Athlete Transition Services. A big way that you can support what we have going on is through it's multiple ways, but one in particular. Again, we're fundraising right now to be able to provide resources and programming for colleges, for institutions, for student athletes who don't have the resources, whose universities don't have the resources due to COVID. A lot of schools have experienced over 70% budget cuts. And, you know, when in addition to positions being cut, so does the allocation of resources that are traditionally, you know, put aside for programming like ours. And so you can give on our website. There's a donate tab at the top. You know, if you're part of a corporation, your company, if you know they have a corporate giving department, you know, this is a time of year where a lot of those resources that might have not been utilized are now being distributed. Suggest our organization. We will put it to good use. And so thank you.
Oh man, there's no question that we put to good use. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. Thank you for coming on and adding so much value to the panel today. Once again, thank you for all the value you've added to my life and for being a pioneer in the transition space. Much love to you. We got to have you back on another one of the panels, man, just to share again. So
anytime, Taj, and thank you for everything you do, man. And please know that again, the feelings are mutual, and I appreciate and value our professional relationship, brother. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. You enjoy the rest of the Saturday with the family. We'll talk soon.
All right. Look forward to it.
Oh, man. Good stuff, folks. Good stuff. I really love that Jonathan dove into that. It's not easy, and sometimes you're going to have to do what you have to do to make it happen. Like he said, just last year, I had a period of time for several months where I was installing glass showers, right? Just good money, close to the house. I had to do what I had to do, but the point is to never lose sight of your mission. The point is, whatever you set out to do, continue on that until the mission is fulfilled. And sometimes the mission is never fulfilled. People like Jonathan, people like you're seeing on this panel, people like me, I'm going to be on my mission till the day I die. So anyway, let me get on my soapbox and introduce our next guest. Next up, and this is a really solid dude. You know, once again, this is a recent connection, but just the relationship we have and what it's blossomed into in such a very short period of time is another testament to networking and finding people you can run with. So this is a really solid dude I've had the pleasure of connecting with this year. Really excited for you to hear what RJ is going to be sharing with you. He has a message he wants to deliver before I get into some questions. But just a little bit of background. RJ Hively is a graduate of Ole Miss, where he was a member of the baseball team. He then went on to play professionally with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he's now an elite mindset coach and the owner of JW5 LLC. RJ has worked with multiple 200 companies, Fortune 200 companies, on developing their elite mindset. Please welcome at the Entrepreneur panel, Mr. RJ Hively.
Hey, Taj, how's it going?
What's up? Whoa, hold up. I'm doing great, man. But before we move any further, let me see that shirt, brother. Like, hold on now. I didn't know you had.
You got it.
Oh my goodness, that's clean, man. I can get me one of those.
It's a dream come true for sure.
I love it. And you got it buttoned all the way up to the top like me. You know how we get down.
How you were looking, I wanted to join in.
Got to keep it buttoned to the top, man. Hey, in all seriousness, before we dive in, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about your social media and all that. But, bro, where can I get the shirt? You got to let me know.
Oh, man, it's going to be up on the website here probably in the next month or so. As soon as they come man, I'll get you them out. I got some hats coming in, and I got some workout shirts that have the logo on them, and then it says "Elite Mindset is not a single act, yet a habit."
Wow. It looks good. It looks like you got that shipped over from Europe or something, man. You looking some Italian thread. I don't know what you got going on over there, brother.
Man, I wish.
All right, man. Let me stop. I'm getting all hyped up over your shirt. Just for anybody listening, so I have a ton of questions for RJ. We're gonna dive into his full journey. But for everyone tuning in, RJ was telling me before we got started today that he has a few things on his mind that he wants to share with you all. So I'll go ahead and pass the mic to RJ. I'll get out the way, and then we'll circle back with a few questions. Take it away, brother.
No, I appreciate that, and it's fun for me going last because I get to hear three solid people that are going through, what we're going through, and what Classye had to say in the aspect of, no one really knows what we're going through when we finish sports. That one hit deep, especially when she talked about some depression aspects. I had that in my playing career a little bit. And then definitely after, the identity aspect of who I was, what I wanted to bring to this world outside of sports. So, man, for me sitting here listening to these awesome people talk, it's been incredible. So I appreciate the honor of being on here. But for everyone out there, man, the one thing I really want you guys to understand is 3 words, and it's I need help. As athletes, I think like we get into this mindset, hey, I can do it myself. Don't worry about me, I got it. But in the end of the day, we need help. Everyone needs help. Connections, right? How we got here right now. So to be able to ask that question, hey, I need help, and then to back it up with a plan. Hey, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. I don't know how to get there, though. That's where I need your help with. I feel like a lot of people, and I started to do this too, is like, hey, I need help. People are like, great, I'd love to help you. What do you need help with? I go, I don't know. Now, all of a sudden, you start to put together a plan and be like, hey, this is where I want to get to. This is my dream. This is my mindset. Now you start asking people, hey, how'd you get here? All right, perfect. That's going to work for me. I can use that and move on that way. Yeah, I've been out of baseball roughly, I think 2 years now. So it's been crazy. I've been in the corporate world for the last year and a half. And honestly, the learning experience has been great, but it's not something that I'm passionate about. So I'd finish my day and I'd go to bed and I wasn't fulfilled. And that's what, the last 3 panelists have talked about, is finding your mission, finding your passion, and following that. And I think in an athlete mindset, I'd go out and I'd have a good game and people are like, hey man, like, congratulations, good job, whatever it may be. But in my mind, it was like, it wasn't good enough. I need to do this. I need to do that. So especially while you're going through this process, man, take a second and realize all the small successes and the growth that you've had, and enjoy those, and then understand, hey, all right, cool. I need to move on. I need to move forward. That's just a small stepping stone on our way. But also use your platforms and your experiences, right? I went from what would be considered probably the top like 2% of the 1% of where I was and where I made it in my career. And then, in mental health and mental training, I got 12 years experience, whether that was, through mentorships, through the colleges I worked with. And then after my playing career, being able to work with some companies and some clients. But man, it was tough on me to be a like junior recruiter, or just a recruiter and low man on the totem pole. And I felt like I couldn't express myself because of where I was at. And through that, I started thinking about all my experiences, right? So I said 12 years professional and playing experience, dealing with mindset. For 8 months, I was a professional caddy at a private golf club. And it was a crazy little story. We had this guy that came in and he fired like 7 caddies that he had. And finally, my boss came down. He's like, hey, you want to take it? And I was like, yeah, sure. What's he going to do? Fire me? I was like, I'm not working at the moment anyway, right? And, the one thing I kept hearing was like, he's mean. He's mean. I was like, that's cool. I know how to handle it, and kind of find my niche into how I can connect with him. And it was a high stakes game. We were talking like 10K a hole. So I'm sitting here reading putts for a guy that if he makes it, he wins 10 grand. And if he misses, he loses out on 10 grand. So you want to talk about pressure that I've never felt before. right? But to fall back on those experiences now I can talk to people that, if they want to go into golf, if they want to play, if they want to caddy, however it may be. And so leveraging my experiences in the past that I had to help propel what I want to do with JW5. And like Jonathan was talking about, man, reach out to as many people as you can, connect with as many people as you can, because it only takes one person to be able to change your life, your livelihood, or the direction you're going. And one thing that I teach a little bit when I talk with companies is the aspect of being selfishly unselfish. Man, if we don't take care of the engine that drives us, how are we supposed to be able to take care of the people around us?
Yeah, man. Wow. Okay. I mean, I got a page full of notes, man. I'm like, where do I even begin with this? I'm going to start with the first thing that you said, which is those 3. I need help. I know we're here to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to get into all that, but I really do thank you for sharing that, because as you know, you and I have talked about this. That was one of the main issues I faced too. And I know a lot of athletes were prideful people. So we don't want to show or explain a lot of times we can't even articulate it, but even if we could, it's difficult to say, hey, I'm struggling right now. And then the second part that you said, which I thought was key, was actually figuring out what you're struggling with. You know what I mean? That's a major factor too, because how can you ask for help if you don't know what you need help with? And I think that's a lot of reflection, a lot of understanding what it is that you're missing in your life and where you're looking to go. So I'm just super grateful for you for sharing that, man, because I know that hit somebody right in the chest today. It's just like it hit me in the chest. Another thing that you touched on, man, that I wanted to bring up was celebrating yourself. That is something that you and I have talked about this. I encourage that with any athlete I'm helping through the transition, having a period of time where we're celebrating and talking about, like, you should be proud of everything you've accomplished, not ashamed because it's over. It ends for everybody. And celebrating what you've accomplished thus far allows you to come from a place where you can be excited about what you're going to accomplish next. And a perfect way to segue into something you touched on with your career, great learning experience, but laying your head on the pillow at night, not being fulfilled. So once again, the common thread of everybody who's been on the panel is you figured out what you wanted to do, but then you executed on it. So the question I have for you is, why J5? You know what I mean? Why jump into JW5 Consulting, and why was that the route you decided to go? Why is this work around mindset important to you?
Awesome. So first off, JW5, it's always been a lifelong dream of mine to not only own my own company, but I don't think I've shared this with you. My backstory, in 2010, my best friend from kindergarten actually passed away. And his initials were JW, and his favorite number was 5. And when he passed away, I took on a mindset that it was now our goal to make it to the big leagues. It wasn't just my dream anymore. It was our dream. And, unfortunately, I made it very high. I never made it to the big leagues. But, man, what better way to represent his name and what he stood for and honor him than to create a company in his name. And so it's crazy how I got into the mindset aspect, right? I got done playing. I moved out to Denver. I needed a job, so I hopped in recruiting. And I love the aspect of what they sold me on is, hey, if you work hard, you're going to make a ton of money. And I was like, cool, I need some money, so let's do it. But like I said, at the end of the day, there was no fulfillment in what I was doing. I was making money. That was great. I was being able to pay the bills that I had. Perfect, right? It fit that need. But that personal need, again, that selfishly unselfish aspect, I wasn't fulfilled at night. I wasn't waking up ready to dominate any day and like Classye said, slay, right? Right. So I started giving some baseball lessons just on the side. I wanted to give back, man. Like I have a ton of information and some really cool experiences that I was fortunate enough to have. And I connected with a place out here called Diamond Club Baseball, and they've been nothing but great to me, helping me out, getting me going. And what I kept seeing is that these kids, especially in between ages of like 8 and 14-ish, the skill level isn't there yet, right? They haven't mastered that skill. They're still trying to learn their bodies and growing. And, I worked with a kid last year, and he's grown like 2 feet. And now he's like a giraffe on ice skates, right? Trying to run and figure out his body. But what they get frustrated with more so than the lack of, okay, I can see it in my head, but I can't produce the result, was the negative emotions that would overtake them because they were failing. And so my job almost switched from trying to teach them mechanics of throwing into, hey, start to understand your emotions, be cool with them. You're allowed to have them, but now how do we control them? And I think that's kind of the biggest thing with them. And I was fortunate enough, and this is honestly how it all started. I worked with this awesome kid, and he was an emotional wreck to start out. As soon as he did one thing bad, man, he just couldn't control himself anymore. He'd boil up, boil over, and start to cry. And I was like, dude, I get it. I know, we've been there. I said, but what we need to understand is we can't allow that to happen, especially during game time. You need to break down, man, do it behind closed doors, do it around some people that you love and trust. We can't do that out on the field. It takes away from not only our coaches, our parents that are out there, all these people that sacrifice for us, but it also takes away from our team. So again, the selfishly unselfish aspect of, I need to take care of my stuff so I can help better the team in any way we go. And, within 2 months, you were starting to see him, boil up with these emotions, and then start to learn how to breathe, slow his heart rate down, and kind of get himself back under control. And through that, the pressures of just playing kind of went away for him, and he was able to just be his athletic self and go out and play. And that actually led into, me speaking with his parents, and that's how I got involved with my first Fortune 200 company. She got me connected to the right people through that. She said she would sit down and listen on the off camera and write down what we were talking about and use it with her team. And so I flipped that around, and I was able to come out and talk to her team in person, which was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Not bad for your first few gigs being with a Fortune 200 companies. Huh? Awesome. Yeah, man. I think that's amazing. It's always interesting when you're trying to help someone else, you end up being helped in the process. That's one of the things that's been running through my life. As soon as I dedicated my life to helping and serving others, all of a sudden, all these doors open up with people who want to help me. So I think that's amazing that you shared that, man. And one thing that I don't want to overlook is how you talk about, especially with these young boys, man, encouraging them to process, not only just accept, but process their emotions. Like you said, not during game time, but behind closed doors. It's okay to have feelings, man. It's okay to cry. Like, let it out so that it doesn't boil up, like you said, and turn into something else. And I think it's really smart that you tie that in with being selfishly unselfish, meaning this isn't just about you processing your emotions or being in control of your emotions, but being able to do that for the benefit of the team as well. So, obviously you're doing that in the form of baseball right now, but there's no doubt, man, that these lessons you're teaching these young boys is going to play out in the rest of their lives as well. Like I said, it's smart that you have that tie-in because especially as young boys, man, we want to belong where everyone wants to belong. Everyone wants to be a part of a team, and you're encouraging them that the best way they can do that is to take care of their emotional state so that they can be effective for the team. So really smart how you paired the two, man, because they kind of work off of each other. So props to you for having that strategy going into it, man.
No, I appreciate that. And long-term goals, I'd love either if I do it myself or if there's a company out there that wants to pair, I'd love to be able to create a curriculum for the youth based around kind of an elite mindset. That's what I call what I do. But it's all mental health, right? Being able to understand what makes you anxious, what makes you sad, what makes you cry, what makes you happy, and understanding those emotions and filtering it to the aspect of, okay, cool. This brings me pain or anxiousness, so I'm going to stay away from it. But then on the flip of that, if you get thrown into a situation where you're going to get anxious, how to be able to control it and handle it. Mm-hmm. And so to start these, all young athletes, all young people in general, right? These aren't just athletic skill sets, right? This is stuff I've learned through athletics, but this carries over to anything you want to do. If that's friendship, relationship, sports, business, whatever it may be, man, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you supposed to be able to do well for the company? How well, for your family, for your relationship, whatever it may be. And I talked to a ton of people and it's like, I want to help. And I was like, that's great, but you need to work on you first. And in the process of helping other people, man, I've learned so much about myself in the last 6 months since I started this that I had no idea that I would. And that's probably been the most incredible thing.
Right. Yeah, that's huge, man. And then so you're obviously doing great work with these kids and learning about yourself through the process. How do you transfer that over when you go in to speak at a top tier company? What types of things are you talking to these people about? Because obviously you're working with different groups of people. The mindset still applies, but what is that? What's kind of the difference when you're speaking to a kid versus when you go in to speak to a Fortune 200 company?
With kids, it's a little bit more of a blank canvas, right? Because they don't know this stuff yet, and they may not understand it. But the way I kind of relate it, I remember when I was a kid and I saw my first like car chase on TV, right? You're just glued to the TV to see what happens. And I remember there was a stretch where it was on like Monday, I saw the first one, and by Friday, it was like the third one. I was like, oh, I've already seen that. That's cool. And so I wanted to implement that same strategy, especially with failing in sports early on. Because now all of a sudden you keep hearing failure, failure, failure over and over again. It doesn't sit so high on the pedestal anymore. And I believe it was, what Classye said is, I don't fail, I pivot. And that's the idea, right? It's however you want to look at it. Man, you can say that I failed in corporate America. Okay, that if that's what you want to say is cool. I pivoted off to create my own company and help kids, right? So however you want to look at it, and again, it's the optimistic or pessimistic outlook on it. When I'm dealing with companies, it's a little bit more difficult. People are set in their ways the older they get. So it's harder to find people that are in a growth mindset and be open to this. But one thing I think that separates myself when I come in and talk to companies is I focus on you to help better that company. And I'm in the works of trying to create a big profile on that. And I have no idea what I'm going to call it, but basically kind of like a better me, better we. So if a company comes in and focuses on the employees and gives them opportunities, if they have questions about, the struggles they're going through with, the ups and downs of what business is, the anxiousness. I put on a presentation for my current company, still in recruiting, again, transitioning out. And a lot of the questions that I got after is, how do I handle the anxiety before I walk into a big board meeting or a big room? And the first question I asked them, I said, do you know the material? And they go, yeah, of course. And I said, then what are you anxious about? You already know the material, but you're creating the outside source aspect and the pressure of the outside source to affect you. So take a couple deep breaths, slow down that heart rate, and understand the inner confidence that you have and that you portray when you speak about something that you truly love. And honestly, it's been awesome to see the transition. And for me, it's the light that flips on, especially with the younger generation and speaking on this. Because it's something you just kind of pound your head against the wall over and over. They don't get it, and they don't get it, and they don't get it. And then one day they come in and they're like, I got it. And you're like, yeah, I know. You can see it now.
That's right. That's right, man. You got some good stuff over there, man. I love the methodology. I love the mindset behind it. I love the strategies that you use. And I love how you're taking that same concept of me, developing the best version of me so that we can connect it to we. How'd you say it was focus on me so we can, you said it great. Yeah.
Again, I have no idea, what I'm going to go with, but what I have written down right now is kind of just a better me, better we.
Right. That's how you said it. Better me, better we. I think that's huge. Not only for the kids, like you just talked about with their team, but how you're transferring that over into the corporate mindset. That's I think that really is a way to build strong organizations, is to have that me to we attitude. I see that with self-published in 30 days. That's definitely the mindset that is in the company, and we operate like that as well. The fact that we're even here doing a panel for former athletes through the company, like, you know what I mean? That's a me to we. They're supporting everything that I want to do, and I support everything that we do as a unit. But I want to talk about the future, man. Obviously, there's so many different routes you can go. You could take this thing across the globe and just impact on so many different types of organizations. But just like personally, what do you want to see JW5 grow and expand into over the next, several years, or even way off into the future?
Like I said, whether I do it myself with some help, ideally right now, what I would love to do, my current company has like 4 different sections, and one of them is education. So I'd love to be able to create a curriculum and help these younger kids out, create like children's books that are based around mentality, mental health, and then break that into high school kids that are going into college. Man, I think if we could put together something that's like a certificate based, and they can go through the program and be able to help themselves. You know, if I called the Ole Miss coach right now and was like, hey, I have a bunch of kids that went through a mental training program, they're one step ahead when they come into your organization or your school now. You know, that could be something down the line in which I'd love to be able to help these kids. Maybe if the skill set aspect only allows them to play in college and not on the professional level, have them have that one step where they're going to get the most out of that college experience, instead of, well, you know, my skill set or injury or this happened, and have that regret later on.
Okay, I got that. That's really smart, man. You know, we got to have a conversation about those children's books down the line too.
No, I know. We do.
You know, these are passion projects for me too, man. So anything like a former athlete like yourself is doing,
honestly, if I can get JW5, up and running the way I see, I'm a huge hockey fan and advocate, and that's part of the reason why I moved to Denver. So, man, if I could work with the Avalanche and help them, they're young and they're good, and they're going to be contenders for the next couple of years. So I'd love to be able to work one-on-one with their players, and just, like I said, create better players inside that team, build that team culture a little bit deeper, and go from there. So I think for me personally, that would be the ultimate goal, to be around hockey and be on the inside of it. I played like 1 year of like roller hockey and I absolutely loved it. But that's kind of where my passion is when it comes to sports, man. I can sit there and watch hockey all day. So to be able to work with the Avalanche would probably be the ultimate goal. And then, on top of that, to be able to get JW5 running and help these kids out and create more awareness in the community. I think a ton of athletes struggle with mental health, whether that's, depression, pressure that they put on themselves, outside sources, whatever it may be. But it wasn't until the last couple of years until athletes really came out and were like, hey, yes, I do struggle with this. And so my mindset behind that is if we can kind of nip that in the butt early on with the younger generation, just, in 10 or 15 years, if they get that experience before they go into the professional worlds, whether that's athletics or business, they're already going to have that mindset and they're going to be already ready to crush it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm curious to know, because obviously you went into the future of JW5, which is huge. I think the mission is awesome. And one thing I love to ask people this question is, we know the mission of the vision, or the vision of the future of the company, but I want to talk about the man, RJ Hively. Like, what do you want your legacy to be, man, when you leave this earth? What do you want people to know, RJ?
Oh man, honestly, that I was just a good dude that took a platform and I was able to help other people. Whether this skyrockets to generational wealth, that'd be great, so I can take care of my friends and family. But at the end of the day, I had a real kind of heart-to-heart with myself. Man, we're going to work the rest of our lives. No doubt about that, right? Unless one of us wins the lottery or something like that. And so I wanted to take what I'm passionate about and the change I would want to see in the world. And that's for people to be able to understand their emotions, and not do anything regretful because they let their emotions take over them.
Yeah, that's huge, RJ. Man, that's inspiring stuff, man. Can you give some advice to any current or former athletes out there who just may be trying to find their way, trying to carve out a lane like you've done for yourself? And obviously it didn't happen overnight. Like you said, it took some time to get there. And I think that's what makes it even more special and more beneficial for people to hear some advice from you about how they can carve out their own lanes or discover for themselves the legacy they want to leave behind in this world.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Find something you're passionate about, right? I feel like as athletes, everyone wants to hire us onto the company because we have so many intangibles that they don't have to teach anymore, right? We got those through sports, the time management, the hard work, the extra reps, like that's just ingrained in us, right? So am I going to work very hard for another company that's only going to give me 20% of what I'm doing? Or am I going to be able to break off and do something that I'm passionate about and be able to help people on a better than a monetary level man, I don't know. I got a mixed view on money. You know, money comes and goes, right? Some people have more of it, some people don't. I've been fortunate to be around people that have a ton of money, and they deal with the same problems that people that don't have any money deal with, right? It's just a matter of whether or not we can pay our bills and how good we look on social media throughout it. But, you know, more times than not, the people that don't have the money and that are grinding are mostly happier from my experiences so far, right? And again, it's the optimistic viewpoint of like, hey, this is what I have and this is what I'm grateful for, rather than, oh, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. Find something you're passionate about and figure out a way, right? If you got to work some extra jobs, man, the last 6-7 months, I've been working 3 or 4 jobs. It is what it is. And it's what I need to do to take care of what's on the table right now. But I wake up every morning ready to go, and I go to bed fulfilled in what I'm doing. And that's probably the most happy I've ever been in my life. And that's through my playing career and everything. Because through my playing career is like, okay, I did this. Well, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to, you know, I'm not here yet. I'm not here yet. And it was more on the selfish level. But now on the flip side, now I can be selfish in what I want to do and how I want to help the world. And that's going to help better other people. And I don't think there's anything that's more fulfilling than that.
Oh man, I love that, RJ. I definitely resonate with that message too, man. Like, you know, there's been times where I'm looking at my bank account, like, how am I going to pay this and pay that? But at the end of the day, I was so happy and so fulfilled just through the work I was doing. And then plus,
Right.
you know, eventually there's no way it's not going to pay off, you know, if you're continuing to put in the work and serving on others. So very powerful stuff that you shared.
We're going to work the rest of our lives. Why not it be something that we're passionate about that can help other people? And in a sense, the next generation that comes through is better off for it. But I don't see anything else that could be more fulfilling. And, you know, a lot of the motivational stuff that I listen to and I try to preach, it always talks about on your gravestone, there's a start date and an end date.
Mm-hmm.
And that dash in between is what we make of it. And that's our story. You know, and so everyone, you know, man, you know, what's your book, what's your painting, you know, what's your dash, whatever it may be, whatever resonates with you, go and find that and do it. It may not be a full-time job for you. It may not how you make your income. Maybe it's something you do on the side because you love sales or recruiting or whatever it may be. And I think that's where people kind of stop themselves is, oh, I don't want to put in that work if I'm not going to make any money off of it or this or that. As long as you're passionate about it and it's bringing some good into the world, why not?
That's it, man. And RJ, from one man to another, you're doing a great job with your dash between that start and end date, man. So I'm super happy to have, of course, man. Thank you, brother. I'm super happy to have connected with you. Of course, we connected by accident, and it's grown into something amazing. We're just getting started, man. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you again, of course, for coming on and sharing so much great knowledge, so much great wisdom. Brother, it won't be the last time either. But please, before we wrap up, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about JW5, all that good stuff.
No, I appreciate that. The website's not up yet. It's up and coming. In my mind, January 1 is kind of where I see everything kind of going full bore off of that. I have 2 Instagrams right now. My personals are Hively27, and then the business one is JW5 Pro. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's RJ Hively, my first name, last name. And then the email that we have is rj@jw5pro.com. And honestly, everyone reach out. You know, my life mission is to help people out, whether that's monetary or not. I just want to share the knowledge that I have and go from there.
I love it. Everyone, please go get in touch with this man. He's a solid dude. As you heard what's on his heart and his mind today, please go support what he's doing, get some great wisdom. Check out, you know, support the movement and learn from this man. I'm learning a ton over here today. So thank you again, RJ, for coming on, man. You have a great rest of your weekend.
No, man, I appreciate it. It's been an honor to be on here. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother. See you later.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another great Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. Stay tuned for next month, another fire lineup for you. We're going to announce the dates and all that kind of stuff. I thank Self-Published in 30 Days for sponsoring this event. I want to thank Dana from Self-Published 30 Days, our program coordinator, for being on the ones and making this thing flow smoothly. Please go check out my new book. Pre-order the book, thriveaftersportsbook.com. Go check out Self-Publishing 30 Days Podcast, Author Spotlight, The Power of Story. I'm hosting shows over there as well. Check out the Thrive After Sports podcast. If you got any value out of this, I ask that you please share this with a current or a former athlete, or just anyone you think will get value from this. Obviously, we have some great panelists. Shout out to Classye James. Shout out to Rachel Maeng. Shout out to Jonathan Orr, RJ Hively, who you just heard from. Tons of people, tons of great people just dropping a whole bunch of value bombs. So really appreciate you guys tuning in with us, and we will see you next month.